I'm going to wait for just a few more minutes. We'll be starting in just a moment. There's still lots of people joining us, but I'm super excited about this session and grateful for these three leaders, not only to be here, but for the work that they do in trying to re-indigenize this colonialized world that we live in. So we'll just give it a few more minutes, as I see there are still some folks in the waiting room. I also want to let everyone know that we are recording. So these will be available about a week. That's Governor Peanut Butter. You'll see him throughout the day, I'm sure, barking, letting us know, of course, while I'm talking, that there's someone outside. It's probably just another dog, though. Yeah, good boy, good boy. We'll be starting in just a moment. So sorry.
At Cooperation Humboldt, we have always said, from our inception, that children are always welcome at Cooperation Humboldt meeting and events. And now that we have moved on to a video gathering, we have added pets. And you'll also hear Farsad's birds in the background. You'll hear Governor Peanut Butter, a wonderful shepherd lab mix, a shepherdor. You'll see an appearance occasionally from Nicholas Cat. So just know that we're rolling this way. So thank you so much for joining us. Ruthie is taking care of Governor, and then we'll be getting underway in just a moment. And I'm reminded of what my mama taught me, and that is, if you can't handle the little things, you can't do the big things. And I know that we can do the big things of creating a new world, so we can obviously handle the little things like a barking dog.
Thanks for that, David. And that was because Bob is here to fix our fence. Yay. Everything always happens at once, but it looks like everyone is here, and I have dealt with my issues. So welcome to our first session of the Post-Capitalism Conference, Regenerative Economic Development to Re-Indigenize, with Chase Ironeyes, Michelle Vassel, and David Cobb. Thank you all for coming. I have the honor of being able to welcome our guests. So our first speaker today will be Chase Ironeyes. Chase is an attorney for the Lakota People's Law Project. He was raised in the Standing Rock Nation and now lives on the Lakota Nation. He's been working to liberate Indigenous nations by deconstructing the ongoing colonial oppression executed against Indigenous nations and empowering others to pick up the fight to re-spiritualize our collective experience. So welcome, Chase. Thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you. I was fortunate enough to catch the conference, the beginning of the gathering, right from the inception to the offering by Chairman Ted. I can't remember his last name, from the Wiyot Nation. And I want to thank everybody. I did not know this was a gathering of this magnitude with this many people. I'm sure we're setting off alarms everywhere around the security state there. As you know, I was I was born into this side of oppression, this side of privilege, this side of racial and working class subjugation. And I was born as an Indigenous person, a Titouan or Ikje Wichasha, Lakota Sioux, it's also called in the mainstream lexicon. And I drive maybe 3-4 times a week from where I now live on the Pine Ridge Reservation, which was the site of a resistance, a 71-day armed siege led by people like my father, people like my mother, people who were also born into that side of racial and working class subjugation. And what we're speaking of, what we're talking about, requires a lot of sacrifice. And, I just want to mention that and be cognizant of that we're standing on the soldiers, the shoulders. Maybe that was a little slip there. We're standing on the sacrifices of those who have come right before us, just like Chairman Ted was saying. And it's just my honor and privilege to be able to join the gathering, to imagine a post-capitalistic world in the same way that we imagine a post-colonial world, in the same way that we imagine a post-racist world. And we know that we're far from that, and we're caught up in the throes of that power dynamic, that dialectic that has pitted us against ourselves, that has colonized the planet and continues to colonize spirit by spirit, mind by mind, everybody, every conscious sentient being that is on the planet right now. And it started, you might have to take David's suggestion and read Chalice and the Blade. I have not gotten through all of that, but no matter the theory that we study or the disciplines that we come from, we know in our souls that something is out of balance with the system that we are living under. And it doesn't even matter if we call it capitalism, because on the other side of that, you're going to have all the people on the red team saying, what about you commies on the left out in California? I live in the Dakotas, and so I see how people like Steve Bannon and the cats that were behind the Trump machine are able to create the battlefield for us and give us the terms with which we are supposed to engage with each other in argumentative fashion. And that follows right from the creation of things like race or religion, or those differences that are very real, but that we were born into and which we are still trying to liberate from when we speak of race and religion and the creation of whiteness. I've got a lot of friends that identify as white people. They don't know they're seeking and searching former indigenous peoples of what is the European continent and Eurasian area. When we try to break down the term indigeneity, and I get in a lot of trouble for this by saying that we are all indigenous. And all I meant to imply was that we all descend from those traditions, those worldviews, those isms and ologies where we are able to know and explore what we are, know and explore who we are, and express that in a way that honors this respect relationship that we as human beings have with Mother Earth, the sacred universe, the universal elements, all of those that we would simply call resources in Western thought and theology and institutional knowing. Indigenous peoples, indigenous nations have untold millennia old traditions and ways of knowing, ways of exploring, ways of adapting and evolving even right now. Even though we are speaking this bastard pirate commercialized language of English, which kind of inhibits our metaphysical inquisition, our interpretive abilities, and our perceptive abilities, when we are returning to a sacred understanding and trying to walk as human beings, the English language is a challenging software. It's a software that is kind of running our consciousness. And it's very challenging to seek spiritual liberation when you might not know your songs. You might have to reinvent those songs. You might have to reinvent those dances. You might have to sit by a fire in silence. You might have to isolate yourself and graduate from ourselves without food and water for 4 days. That's what it's like in my tradition. I wish it wasn't so. I often wonder, why do I got to be born into the most difficult cosmology? But we all have these gifts, these responsibilities of life, of the human condition that we've inherited. And being around people like everybody who's logged in, that is a way that we can strengthen ourselves and let each other know that we are not alone. Because I remember at Standing Rock, when we were talking about capitalism, we're talking about the financial extractive war machine. You know, starting way back from the earliest colonial inceptions of abstracting the spirit from the mind, abstracting meaning from labor. This construct, set of construct that is imparted to us, is inculcated in its subjects, the populace, the human beings who are not conscious yet, but who are seeking that. That is confronting us every single day of our lives, and they're very clever, they're very insidious, they're brilliant. They require us to participate in our own destruction, in our own demise. If I want to come here to my studio so I can join you, I've got to burn a fossil fuel. If I'm out of water, way out in some middle of nowhere area, I've got to buy something that the petrochemical apparatus has put there for me, has commodified for me. And we know that we are killing the planet. I can sense it in my children's urgency. They know full well, they have already graduated and faced those existential crises that we, people in the Green Party, people in the People's Party, the Poor People's Movement, indigenous nations, everybody who sometimes not even by choice, we find ourselves confronted with the financial extractive war machine and the fact that we require blood. If you think of ourselves as parasites, as viruses, or as a cancer, we require blood and Mother Earth resources. We are a system that is constantly consuming that. And it is a gift on us and a burden that we are recognizing that we appreciate that we know we have to change course because we are out of time. Standing Rock, I wanted to talk a little bit about that because that was my first encounter where I stepped up to this dividing line where capitalism and the state of law and order, what I was trained as a lawyer to see as righteous and worth upholding, I was able to feel very viscerally that this system was designed to protect capital and property. And that is all. And that I was a part of that capital and that property through having to trade my labor and having to watch our Mother Earth be commodified and transported, exported, become consumed and expressed in gross domestic products. And it was the first time that I saw that system where corporate sponsored, state executed violence was inflicted on almost 1,000 unarmed, prayerful people who were engaging in spiritual liberation, a civil resistance. We don't, either because of our theology or because of the schools of thoughts and disciplines that we come from, we don't engage violence, even though we would be justified, certainly justified, in defending ourselves as understood as being connected to Mother Earth. But we, like I said, my father and them tried that in the 70s. So on Pine Ridge, check out Robert Redford's incident at Oglala. COINTELPRO basically ran a 2-year running massacre where 70 to 100 people were murdered. And it's continuing at Standing Rock. These outside private military contractors came in and infiltrated and put people against each other. It's happening at a lithium mine in Nevada near Fort McDermott. The Shoshone Paiute people are facing these divisive challenges that unfortunately have ended up in bloodshed throughout the years. So the work that we are engaged with is very serious, but it's part of our calling. It's part of the path that we are seeking to walk with a respect relationship, informing how we relate to the sacred universe. And that is, I was not able to put those kind of words around what was happening at Standing Rock when Standing Rock was happening, because all of a sudden, this financial extractive war machine is just at our doorstep saying, we are going to put this pipeline in your country, in your homeland, in your treaty protected area, your internationally recognized character and personality mean nothing to us. This is as the United States. And so they caused this fight and backed us into a corner. And we were able to, and I'll end with this, we were able to cause a ceremony of international, intergalactic proportions. What happened there when people are giving their bodies, sacrificing their bodies and everything they have to confront the violence of capitalism or any other ism that is engaged in financialized, extractive, war machine tactics. That is a ceremony. That is a way that we are offering ourselves. And the whole world was shook up. All the combat veterans came to join us on December 3rd and 4th. And we were at a point of achieving a popular, more than a critical mass. We were about to win over the whole country. And I recognize that potential in the kind of ethos that is expressed in this conference. We have to keep pushing because we are facing racist, fascist people who are well capitalized, well armed, and preparing for 1,000-year war, a spiritual war with us. And those of us who are aware of that need to strengthen each other and need to continue to stand no matter what the odds are. So I just want to say that as my way of just joining this gathering. It's my honor and my privilege to be with you here today.
Thank you, Chase, for those opening remarks. Appreciate that. I want to take this opportunity now to introduce Michelle Vassel. Michelle serves as the tribal administrator of the Wiyot tribe. She's the chief executive officer. She also serves as the assistant director of the Northern California Indian Development Council and works as an executive assistant to the Fortuna, California city manager. We often wonder when Michelle sleeps. I'd like to introduce Michelle Vassel. Michelle, you're still muted.
Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties.
Yay.
Can you allow me to share my screen?
Let's see, Farzad, you got that?
Yes, she might be able to do it now.
Do you have it, Michelle? The green bottom at the green button at the bottom of your screen? There we go.
Got it.
Yay.
So welcome, thank you. It was a pleasure listening to Chase speak. I got to talk with him a little bit yesterday, and he's very inspiring. I really don't like to do these kinds of things, and after talking to him, I was all powered up. It was really cool. So what I'm supposed to be talking about today is really a little bit about the Wiyot tribe, a little bit of history about the Wiyot tribe. I want to talk a little bit about historic trauma and a concept called place-based healing, and how the Wiyot tribe has been working together with our community to environmentally and culturally restore the place that we live. So for those of you that are out of the area, don't know where we are in the world, we're located in Northern California. And by Northern California, I mean about a 6-hour drive north of San Francisco. It's Northern California. And according to the creation story, Wiyot people come from a place in the middle of Humboldt Bay that we call Tuluwat. Although over the years, Tuluwat has been known by a couple of different names. Gunther Island is one, and Indian Island is another. Wiyot people have lived on and around the bay for, we like to say, since time immemorial. The people lived on the northern end on the mouth of the Mad River to the southern end in the mouth of the Eel River and all parts around the bay. People coexisted, traded with other tribes, fished, tended local indigenous edible plants, and traded with other people all around the area. While Russian fur traders were the first European people in the area, significant settlement really came with the gold rush, and the impacts from the gold rush, I think, were really hard hit by the Wiyot people. In February of 1860, in the middle of Humboldt Bay, Wiyot people do a ceremony called the World Renewal Ceremony. And it was in the middle of this ceremony at a time when everyone was resting, when all the men were off the island. They were away for the night, gathering supplies. A group of these settlers snuck onto the island in the middle of the night and murdered all the sleeping men, women, children, and elders that were literally sleeping on the island that night. This particular massacre was very, it just so happened that the morning that everybody in Eureka woke up and discovered what had happened on the island in the middle of the bay, there was a visiting reporter from San Francisco that was here called Bret Hart, and he published a story about the incident. So this particular massacre was well known throughout. It actually made papers all the way to New York. But what is less known is of all of the other massacres that happened within weeks of that particular massacre in the area. So this was a devastating time. This particular time period, federal troops were engaged to, and I want to put in quotes, to protect Wiyot people. They were gathered and taken to a place called Fort Humboldt, and then forcibly removed to Hoopa, which is about an hour and 45-minute drive from here. Then up to Smith River, which is another probably hour and 45-minute drive from here. And then down to Round Valley, which is maybe a 2.5, 3 hour drive from here. But regardless of all of these different things that the federal government did, Wiyot people continued to return home and continued to return, and continued to rebuild their lives. In 1908, with private money, the tribe purchased a what we call the old reservation at Table Bluff. And this place was then later, as a part of a new federal policy, terminated. The tribe itself was terminated, and just, the feds just ceased to recognize the tribe as a tribe, and took this land, which was originally purchased with private money, and allotted it to individuals. Regardless of that, the people persisted, and a group that was led by a man named Albert James sued the federal government and won back the tribe's federal recognition, and then sued again to purchase what we now call the new Table Bluff Reservation. In the 1970s, I think, is the first time you can see it in the paper. Albert James was requesting from City of Eureka for the city to transfer portions of the island that the city owned back to the tribe. And that was going on at a time when the tribe wasn't federally recognized, but he was working he was the president of a place called Far West Indian Historical Center, which was a association at the time of other people that were, other tribes that were terminated. In this article, you can read some of his quotes here. As I stood there on the beach, I let my imagination run away with me. I can see my people's children running along the beach on Indian Island. Their laughter is in the air. As I gazed up at the bay, I could see 2 dugout canoes coming towards the island. Oops. Oh, well. Anyway, he dreamed that. He had a dream that the tribe would once again be on the island and that they would dance again. And at the time that he approached the city of Eureka, at that time in the 70s, the city wasn't ready and the city wasn't interested in working with the tribe on that. But the people waited. And in the 1990s, our then tribal chairwoman, Cheryl Seidner, she started a series of vigils with her sister Leona and a couple of other ladies that lived in the city of Eureka. And at these vigils that happened every year in February, the people came out, people, not just Native people, not just Wiyot people, but people from all over the community. And I think that's really when change started to happen in our community, because people were coming to these vigils because they really did not like the history of the island, and they wanted to look at it. For many, many years, it was something that people turned their back to and didn't want to see. So for many years, these vigils were held, and it was at these vigils, really, I think, that a movement started. And Cheryl, at one particular day, found out that there was a piece of property, 1.5 acres, that was available for sale on the island. And so she went to the tribal council and she asked them if they could, if we could purchase it. And at that time, we didn't have money to purchase the island, but the council agreed. So they said, yeah, let's do it. And that's when the fundraisers began. And that's when we developed a fund called the Wiyot Sacred Sites Fund. This logo was created by Cheryl's sister Leona, and we began selling T-shirts and sweatshirts and tabling just anywhere and everywhere we could to be able to get the money to purchase the 1.5 acres. So after about almost a year, the tribe was able to come up with enough money to purchase that 1.5 acres. And as a result, were for the first time legally able to step foot on the island. This is what we stepped onto at that time. The island had been, this part of the island anyway, had been used for about 1.5 or about 150 years, had been used as a boatyard. It was a dry dock facility. So what they would do is ships would come in and out of the bay, and when they needed repair, this dry dock facility would pull them up onto the island and work on them. And, 150 years ago, there was not the kinds of environmental laws that there are today. And so it had accumulated all of this stuff that was all just left behind. Some of it totally illegal today, but wasn't 150 years ago. It also just had tons and tons of just debris, and you couldn't even walk on the island without getting hurt back then. There was just stuff everywhere. It was metal that was all twisted up and rusted. There was wood. There was dilapidated buildings. There was all kinds of stuff that was going on there. And so, we continued with the fundraising, and we did all kinds of things from that point on, because we needed a lot more money to do the restoration work. We were able to purchase, we were able to do a couple of art auctions that brought in some money. We continued to do tabling. We continued to ask for donations. We continued to sell T-shirts and sweatshirts. And then we started doing these, this was a benefit concert, which actually was more of like a music festival. We would bring in people from Native performers from all over the country and you raise money for this project. This particular concert, you have Pure Fay, you have Kisakola, you have Eulali, you have Lightfoot. We had all kinds of people. This was at the Eureka Municipal Auditorium. But we continued to work, and it took, the effort of a lot of people in order to, one, raise the money, but also to do the work of the island, the cleanup portion. In those early days, with all that scrap metal and wood and debris and things that were on the island, the tribe asked for help from the community, and literally everybody that was working on this asked people that they knew to volunteer, and people came out and volunteered. Also, businesses put in some time and effort. We would ask for things like, can somebody donate? Does anybody have a barge? We have to remove the scrap metal, and in order to get off the island, we needed something to put it on. And so people donated a barge or a bin to put things in, or porta potties, or we asked for the community's help, and oftentimes they gave. And we also asked for people from the community to come out and help, and they did. So after we started doing this work, and by work, I mean, we removed about 60 tons of scrap metal, many more tons of garbage. We shored up the erosion that was happening on the midden. For those that don't know what a midden is it's basically, the island is made up of shell midden that is basically built up over time from people living there. So shell middens are actually across this part of California. There's a lot of shell middens across the coast, but this particular one was eroding because of diking that had happened from a previous owner, Gunther, who had diked the island in order to raise cattle in the middle of Humboldt Bay. Anyway, so we were working to restore that shell midden, and we were able to do that. But a lot of that shell midden was on adjacent land that was owned by the city of Eureka. And so Cheryl Seidner, who was our chair at the time, she went back to the city of Eureka and she asked them if they would return the 40 acres that was adjacent to the 1.5 acres that the tribe had purchased. And indeed, they agreed. And after a couple of years of work, they transferred the 40 acres that was adjacent to our 1.5 acres back to the island. So after we received that piece of the island, we started doing the Spartina work, and Spartina is an invasive species that's actually found all around Humboldt Bay. And that particular section, the city-owned section, was really full of Spartina. And so our natural resource department started working to take the Spartina, remove the Spartina from the island. And that particular process we found really improved the quality, or reduced Spartina throughout the whole entire region, because the island was in the middle of Humboldt Bay, and when that Spartina seeded, it spread all over Humboldt Bay. And so by removing it, we really reduced Spartina, not just on the island, but all around Humboldt Bay. We also were able to get a Brownsfield grant and do the soil remediation, the particular type of contamination that the soil on that boatyard, it was really bad. I can't even pronounce all the chemicals that were found on that were in the soil at that time. But we basically were able to get a Brownsfield grant and clean that piece up. And that was slow, steady work. But the tribe received a clean bill of health for the island in 2013. So because of the work on the island, the tribe was the first tribe in the United States to ever receive a site reuse award from the EPA. And we got that in, I think it was 2017. So in 2015, after doing a lot of this work and working for a long time on the island, and let me back up for a second. In 2014, after the tribe had received a clean bill of health from the EPA that it was that the island was healthy again, the tribe was able to return to the island and complete the ceremony that was interrupted back in 1860. The World Renewal Ceremony was completed in the original ceremony that was interrupted in 1860 was completed all those years later in 2014. Cheryl then went back to the city of Eureka, and she asked if they would return the rest of the city the remaining portion of city-owned property on the island. And after about 4 years, sorry, that's a picture of the before and after of the work of the island cleanup. After about 4 years of work with the city of Eureka, the remaining 270 acres were returned. And I don't know if you guys remember when I put up the picture of the Wiyot Sacred Site Fund, there was a little girl in the picture that was the brochure for the Wiyot Sacred Site Fund. And I think for me, this moment was really, I really felt the significance of this moment, in that little girl had grown up and her children were the ones that are dancing in the center of the screen here. So that was just like, it was an amazing thing. Anyway, it was the first time this city transfer, the city of Eureka transferring city-owned land to a tribe, is the first in the history of the United States for any municipality to return land to a tribe. So that was a really, really, really big deal. And I think that this really happened because of this process of place-based healing and the work that was being done in the middle of the bay that benefited everybody in the community. Because the environmental work that was going on the island at the time, it helped with the way the community perceived the tribe, I think, and also it helped benefit everybody in the whole entire region. So, like if you can imagine those batteries that we saw that were shoring up part of the midden in the middle of the bay, those were, this is a salt marsh area, so the tides are coming and going, they're washing over those batteries, and all that lead and stuff that's in batteries is leaching into the water. All those penfluorocarbons. Again, I'm not good at pronouncing those chemical names, but in the contaminated soil, as the tides rise and flow, that's all going into the bay. All that garbage and debris and rusted metal, that's all going into the bay. The preservatives, all of the big cans of chemicals that you see, that's all going into the bay. So when we did this work that healed the island, we were doing work that really helped everybody in this community. If you were a fisherman and you were fishing out of that bay, whether you were a commercial fisherman and you did it for a living, or you were just a regular person who fished to eat, that improved the quality of your fish. Whether you were a duck hunter, and we just made some more habitat for ducks in the flyway, or brants in the flyway to stop over. That helped. If you were an oyster farmer in Humboldt Bay, and you make your living selling oysters, improving the quality of water helped you as well. And also it helped the non-humans in the bay. When we removed the invasive species throughout the island, immediately native plants started just coming back. The tribe actually they took some native plants off another island and put them on the island to help promote their growth, but they really blew up. And as a result of those native plants coming back, so too did wildlife. And I don't know how many out there know about eelgrass and how it works as kind of like a fish nursery. But eelgrass is really important to marine life. And Humboldt Bay is one of the places in California where, we have some, we have more eelgrass here than other places in California. Eelgrass is dying all over California. But eelgrass is really important because it's like a little baby nursery for marine life, and it's where little baby fish grow up, and not just baby fish, but other things too. I love it every time I go out on the island. I like to see the baby crabs that use that as habitat, and there's always tons and tons of birds and other wildlife that use that as a refuge now. But that work to heal the island really helped in healing the community too, because in addition to just benefiting the whole community, benefiting as a whole from this action, it also, I think the combination of the vigils and the community work that led to the restoration of the island, the working side by side, hand in hand, picking up all that scrap metal, picking up all that wood, that was, laying all around. All the people that came to the art auctions, all the people that ate Indian tacos when we had fundraisers, all the people that came out to our benefit concerts, all the people who wore T-shirts, they all participated in that. And together as a community, we really changed that history of Tula. We actually changed the name. We went from Gunther Island to Indian Island, and now it's Tula. We've changed the maps. Anyway, from this, we had just had this magical moment in which the city had returned 270 acres, and it was immediately followed by a fight with a big corporation. And so I want to talk a couple minutes about a place called Wiyot. Wiyot is a high prayer site for Wiyot people. It's considered, it's at the southern edge of the Wiyot ancestral territory, and it's actually the place in which, like the border place, but it's a high prayer site. Religiously, it's significant. It's also historically significant in that it is it's the border between two tribes, and there's a lot of archaeological significance there. But also there's plant life that's significant there. There's things, this place was pretty much unlike Tuluat that had been significantly impacted by what was happening in the middle of Humboldt Bay 150 years ago. This place really hadn't been. It was pretty much remained the same. It's in private ownership, but it had not, it was used for grazing cattle. So it had pretty much remained the same and been left untouched. And it's a place that religious leaders go to prior to ceremony to like set themselves right or get right. And so we found ourselves faced with this big giant corporation who was asking to put up, or was planning to put up, windmills. And by windmills, I don't mean just like, a little farm windmill that you see, that produces a little bit of energy. These were huge. This was a huge project that was going to put up huge windmills that were double the height of redwood trees. Redwood trees are the tallest tree in the world, and these were twice as high, 600 feet into the sky. And the arms, or the fans, the blades were 400 to 600 feet wide. So just imagine, it's hard for me to even conceptualize that. It's easier for me to think twice the size of a redwood tree, which is really gigantic. But in addition to these big things that would be in the sky and just, change the place, the topography of the place, in order to be able to hold something this big, they were going to have to put in these gigantic cement blocks to hold these things down. And it was going to be all across this place, which would change it forever. It was going to be a major, it would basically completely change that forever. It would not be the same anymore. And, how could you go there and get in the right way before going to ceremony with these things hovering over? Or how could you destroy plants that have been there? These are, plants that Wiyot people ate. That were there because people went there before, and they still exist there today. There's trees that are shown that are talked about. The same trees were talked about in on language. Archaeologists or anthropologists, came and recorded Wiyot people's language many years ago. And in some of these recordings, they're talking about trees that still exist there, and those would be gone if this project had happened. As a part of the federal government has laws and the state government has laws that say that when a project like this is going to be developed, they have to come to the tribe and they have to have a conversation with the tribe about the project, and it's supposed to be, we're supposed to have equal footing. We're supposed to have a say in place, and impacts that might be had on cultural resources. And in this case, the company came to the tribe. I think it came twice to the tribe and said, hey, we're planning on doing this project. This is where it's going to be. This is what's going to happen. And the tribal council told them, yes, this place is religiously and culturally significant, and there's things that cannot be replaced there. And while we love windmills and we like clean energy, please choose another location for this. And both times they checked the box that they came to the tribe, and then they went off to continue their project. And they invested all their time and energy. This was the only place it could happen, and this was what was going to happen. And when they completed their environmental review, they basically said, yes, we're going to destroy these cultural objects. We're going to destroy these plants. We're going to destroy this place. And this cannot be mitigated. And it was unmitigatable. So they just proceeded. And we found ourselves in a position where we had this gigantic corporation who had lots of money. And once again, we didn't have any. But our tribal council said, you know what? We have to do something. We can't just let this happen. And so they they asked us to put a call out, and we called out for everybody to please stand in solidarity with the tribe and fight against it. And it was an intense couple of days, or it was actually several weeks of intensity, as the commercials were geared up, and like Chase was saying, we were being pitted against each other here locally. We were, these windmills we were being told on commercials that they were going to save the planet, and they were going to do all this good, and we were the bad guys, and we struggled. But I think because we had such a long history of work with people in the community, and the people came out, and after a series of really intense planning commission meetings and special county board of supervisors meetings and a split vote, 2 on this side, 2 on this side, 1 in the middle, the project was denied. And I think that this story really gives us hope for the world we live in. And I think it's I'm really lucky to have been part of it, in that it happened in our lifetime, or my lifetime, and that it didn't just happen because it was right. It took a lot of people, a lot of people working over a long time, multiple generations of really slow and steady work to really do this work and really heal this community. And so from there, I'm going to hand it off, because I'm getting all emotional. I'm going to hand it off to David, who's going to talk about some of the ways, because the tribe really met David, or started working intensely with Cooperation Humboldt during this time period, because we really called upon everybody in the community to help, and we started working together on that realm. And started building a relationship with Cooperation Humboldt, and as well as other people in this community, in a different way, at trying to create something that would do something different here. And so we've been using this model of Indigenous-led place-based healing and working towards a restorative economy rather than an extractive. And I'll let David take it from there.
Thank you so much, Michelle, and thank you, Chase. And Michelle, I'm not embarrassed at all to say you've moved me to tears with your presentation, and I'm going to embrace that. And I'm going to channel my mama and my mama, who taught me that it's all right to feel grief. And I am feeling grief, but I'm also feeling joy. And I want to start by saying, Giahuich. That's Gaelic for hello, because Chase reminds me of the same thing that Chris Peters of the 7th Generation Fund for Indigenous Development once said to me over a decade ago. And that is that I descend from Indigenous people. My people originally were in Scotland and Ireland and lived in right relationship with one another and with Mother Earth. They had sacred sites that existed in the watersheds. They had sacred relationship with the land and the water and the air. They were where they were supposed to be, doing the things that they were supposed to do. And the English Empire came and brutally traumatized them, pillaged and plundered, created trauma, and drove them off the land. And my ancestors came to this land, this continent, and traumatized the people who were in right relation on this land, and created trauma with the plunder and the pillage and the murder. And, there is a danger in getting rooted in a sense of guilt and shame by acknowledging that. But as Chase reminds us in the very beginning, that we are in fact related, and that guilt and shame, and again, I'll lift up my mama who once taught me that guilt is a useless emotion unless it provokes better conduct. And Mama, as a little boy, used to tell me, if you're ever feeling guilty about something, then either stop doing that thing or start doing something else. And so rather than feel guilty at the extraction and the pillage and the plunder and the domination and the conquest and the colonialization, I decided to embrace a regenerative approach. I've decided that I'm going to lean in to place-based healing. And frankly, yes, to heal the land, but also to heal myself. There is something very immediate about the desire that I have to be in right relation. You see, I live in Jarajiji, also known as Eureka. And I am an uninvited guest here. The Wiyot people did not invite me. And I have nowhere to go. I don't have homelands to return to. So I have to be here because this is, in fact, where my home is now. Ruthie and I have settled here. We're going to die here. And so although I am an uninvited guest, I want to work very hard to be an appropriate guest. I want to be in right relation with the Wiyot people who have stewarded this land since time immemorial. And I want to learn from them how to be a proper steward of Mother Earth. And you know, that's what decolonization means. It is a changing of a worldview. When Michelle and Ted taught me that the name of Eureka actually originally was Jarajiji because it means a good place to stop and rest. Think about that for a moment. For me, it helped me because the Wiyot people were river and bay people on their dugout canoes. And this particular part, and I can see it now when I look at Humboldt Bay or Ouija, I can see, oh yes, as you're going from the place up in the mountain, in the forest, Arcata, or you go down to the other areas, this was a good place to stop and rest. So by thinking about Jarajiji and looking at the land and seeing it through a different eyes, it begins to help me to imagine how to properly be in this place. So I want to start by saying when Cooperation Humboldt first began, we made a commitment that we were going to honor the sovereign right of the Wiyot people. And we do that by paying an honor tax. I'm sharing my screen, and I want to lift up the folks at the Seventh Generation Fund for Indigenous Development, Chris Peters and Tia Oros Peters, who actually originated this idea. And it is an invitation for folks to pay a tax, not a charitable donation, to pay a tax on the fact that I am occupying unceded Wiyot territory, that the Cooperation Humboldt office is in unceded Wiyot territory. This is their ancestral land. I am here. So Cooperation Humboldt pays 1% of our entire budget every year as a tax to the Wiyot people to acknowledge not just the historical atrocities that have happened, but to honor the sovereignty of this place. It's a way to engage in true, authentic relationship and true partners with our neighbors, that is the Wiyot people. And I also want to acknowledge that I got to know Michelle and Ted through that fight. But before getting to know them, you see, I was part of some of those vigils. And I didn't exactly know what to do other than to bear witness. Lived here since 2003, so I saw that process, and 1.5 acres becoming 40 acres, becoming 270 acres. And I saw and can see now what it looks like when land is given back to people who steward it properly and understand the sacred relationship. Now I want you to imagine that we do that throughout that entire map of what Michelle shared with us across all of Wiyot territory. That's possible, my friends. And the idea of engaging in regenerative economics is to say, remember, labor is sacred too. The capitalists try to teach us that it's just another commodity to be bought and paid for, but no. And remember at the beginning, I talked about Gaelic. As I've begun to try to get myself back to what Chase tells me is in my own history, and I have to think through and I have to rediscover it. In Gaelic, they didn't make much of a distinction, at least in ancient Gaelic. They literally talked about different types of human activity and different types of endeavor. There wasn't a difference between work and play. There were just different things that human beings did. Imagine now that sacred idea of work was turned to genuinely repairing and restoring the right balance. Imagine what they did on Tulalat beginning to happen all up and down 40 plus miles of Northern California's coast. That can be done, my friends. And Michelle and I and Ted and others are beginning to develop a new community land trust, an indigenous-led community land trust. Now, as a lawyer, Chase knows, and I know, that a community land trust is just a legal mechanism for how to own property under the Western tradition. But Chase, we can navigate this shitty system that we've got now to get back to the proper relationship. We don't have to wait until some glorious day when we've had a successful revolution. We can right now begin to use the system to get back to a proper way of doing it. So a community land trust is usually used just to put, at least in this area, it's usually used just to keep land in either agriculture or forests, right? Community land trust that we're developing is literally going to be used to engage in food production and distribution, affordable housing, regenerative, restorative, ecological jobs. And get this, of the 7-member board of directors, and 4 of them are designated by the Wiyot tribe. Not just that they are Wiyot people, and I want to lift up Michelle Vassel, who had the insight and to say, no, David, we should have the Wiyot tribe, the council, designated. So it's not just individuals who are Wiyot, but that the tribe itself has engaged in a process of investing into this. And the other 3, 1 of the board of directors will be designated by the Cooperation Humboldt Board of Directors. 1 of the designees we hope will be, we are inviting the Humboldt Area Foundation, our local philanthropic organization, to participate. And 1 will be from a group of impact investors, people who are willing to invest in our project, expecting a return, but not the immediate rapacious, get as much money as fast as we can, but are willing to be patient and say, yes, what you're doing will, in fact, produce a return, but they are not insisting on an immediate return as fast as they can. So look at that ratio. 4 to the Wiyot, every other player gets 1. And the 4 to 3 gives the Wiyot a super majority. And it goes deeper than that because we, in our bylaws, and Michelle and I are working on it right now, are writing into the bylaws that we will never invest in any project that does not have the approval of the Wiyot people. Let that think in for a moment about the difference about how looking even at projects is to recognize that that this is indigenous led, that they have a vision and an understanding. So this idea of healing the land and healing ourselves can be done by working together. Michelle and I have, and I'm actually happy to tell you, we began this project. Michelle and I were colleagues. We had done some work together, but as we've continued to work together, Michelle Vassel is my friend. We have private jokes together. We laugh together. You've now just seen us cry together. And you know what I have is now an authentic human being to human being relationship with Michelle Vassel. And I am looking forward to engaging in these sorts of projects. I'm going to conclude my presentation and then just open it up to Chase and Michelle. And maybe if anybody has any questions or comments in the chat, we can have some discussion. But the specific projects that we're looking at is to continue to build on the relationship that the Wiyot Tribal Council has with the Eureka City government. And we have our eyes on a couple of parking lots that we are going to convert into affordable housing using, we expect, because I think I saw Ashton on the call as well, using a mass timber project, laminated mass timber, to start to move in a carbon as a way to sequester carbon and move into a proper ecological position to create affordable housing. And the challenge that Michelle has put to me, to Ashton, and to everybody who gets here, affordable housing that everybody would want to live in. Like, I don't want to be part of a project that creates housing that I would not like to live in myself. So affordable housing in the center of Jarajiji, right? And we're imagining a cooperative childcare as part of that building, because it's in fact in the city center. And imagine a childcare facility where as a parent, you don't just go and drop your kid off and go off to your work, but a place where you are welcomed back to say, no, like, we want you to come back through the course of the day, on your coffee break, on your lunch break, come and be part of the child rearing facility, because this is an intergenerational approach. But wait, there's more. We're looking at eco-villages, 40, 50 homes in much smaller homes, all in and around Arcata or Eureka or McKinleyville. The idea of getting people in right relation with where they live and engaging in food production on that site. We are looking at creating worker-owned cooperatives to not only do the regenerative work that we're describing, but to do construction, to do all of these things. And I guess I'm going to bring it home here. And that is, what we're talking about is a new economic model. It is post-capitalist. We don't have to wait. We can do it now. And we are in the early stages of this process. And this process, I believe, is in fact a place-based healing economic development. And I want to thank Chase Iron Eyes for grounding us in that spirituality and worldview. I want to thank Michelle Vassel for the incredible historic journey that she took us through. And I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. And with that, I would invite Chase and Michelle to turn on the mics, and we could have just a little bit of discussion as we wait for to see if any comments or questions come up. So Chase and Michelle.
Thank you. I'll jump in and say that it was great to listen to Michelle. What happened there coincides with or correlates to the land back prophecy. I'm sure each of our cultures were with the providence and that guidance that is provided, through our sacrifice, but we were able to see that we have to fulfill these prophecies. When we speak of prophecy, we speak of these divine occurrences. A lot of times that makes me feel like it will happen on its own accord. It's in God's hands, or however you want to look at that. But in our worldviews, we're very much responsible for fulfilling those prophecies. And so to see it work out, how Michelle was, and I appreciate that Michelle just told it like it was, and couldn't really, the emotion was pouring through. And so I do, it takes hard work over however long it's going to take. And I just want to also give a shout out, because before the Zoom started, David was texting me and I said, I'm waiting in the waiting room. You're going to have to let me in. And there's a guy on who's participating named Chase Haikola, and how you say hello, greetings, friend in my language is Haikola, Haukola. And so I thought David was saying, I let Chase in, I let in Chase Haikola. So I thought I got really mixed up in the beginning there. So Chase, there's another Chase on the Zoom. You just now cracked me up beyond what you might believe.
There's a question here. Please tell us more about the Indigenous Controlled Land Trust. How big is it? How was land acquired? Are there governance specifics, perhaps? This is from John Stubbs.
Michelle?
So we're in the process of developing this at the moment. We're actually going through, we've spent a lot of time working out the details, and now we're working on the legalese to make them happen. And
John, the point is that we are creating it. We are making the path by walking. There are systems in place for community land trusts. They came into existence, I think, in the 1970s, were when they really began. Again, they were normally used just for sort of preserving particular areas. Recently, they've started to be used for affordable housing. We have found some indigenous community land trusts, and that's fantastic. And what makes this one unique, and just as the Return of Thuluwat was the first time that a city voluntarily gave land back to its rightful stewards, I think, Michelle, that we are the first people to actually be bringing together an indigenous and non-indigenous people into an organizational collaborative partnership to do this. So it's we're navigating this moment, right? And what we'll be doing is seeking both philanthropic money, that is asking for gifts, the same way that the Wiyot did to get that first 1.5 acres back in 2000. But we're also simultaneously creating another mechanism, literally an investment fund that will mean, and Michelle, I'm embarrassed that I cannot properly pronounce the name of our fund, but I promise to work on it. Can you help me with what our fund will be called? Go ahead.
Oh, Hewachek is the last one.
Yes.
That's the one you always get caught up on. But it means money. And what David and I are, working on is create it. We're not we don't not like money. I think people hear things like post-capitalism and they think, anti-money people, but it's not that we don't like money. We just don't like money that makes us sick. And so this particular fund we're calling Money That Makes Us Well, and we are. And it's supposed to do the opposite, is that we're going to invest locally. We want jobs locally. We want to produce things here. We want it to be a place like the housing development. We want it to exist in a way that looks natural in the place that we live, that it's not a big cement box in the middle of the city, that it's green. It uses both green energy practices, solar or things like that, but also actually built green and then has green opportunities within it. So you think of apartment living, you don't think of having a place to grow a garden, and we want to have a place in this place to grow a garden. We want every place we live to be able to be to have a natural component to it, whether it be natural light, natural air, natural place to grow things. So these are things, and we're developing them with other people in our community to make this happen. It's not exact science, it's a work in progress. And
so that investment fund in the original language of the Wiyot people, it literally means money that makes us well. And I'm going to say that again because it just makes my heart happy to say money that makes us well. Because it's almost mind-blowing to me to imagine that money can actually be used for healing, because in the capitalist economy, it's always used either for entertainment or for consumption purposes. And by the way, consume simply means to use up to the point of destruction. Look it up. That's what consumer power is. But imagine that money and currency could actually be used genuinely for healing and development, and economy and economic development could be used in a regenerative way. And that's why Michelle and I are dedicated not only to doing that here, but why we're so excited to be working with Chase and others across this land, because we want to replicate this. We think this needs to happen everywhere.
I just want to add in that, I also have problems pronouncing that, David, so don't feel like, I'm not Wiyot. And so I really do want to come back up into the real Northern Cali, though, sometime in the very, very near future. I know that we're all experiencing COVID together, and it's the Mother Earth sent us a message. Remember when it first started and all the waters of Venice or Venetia they were finally clearing up. So all like the sea animals were coming up to the docks and you can see again. Carbon emissions went down. The demand for carbon-based fuel went way down. And out here, the land back prophecy is being carried out by this land trust, and I'm completely ready to cooperate, to collaborate, because we are where my studio is, and that's what I'm fortunate to be in a studio because I'm usually in my car, as I'm sure a lot of you are freaking doing a Zoom from your car, but we are trying to reacquire the sacred sites in the Black Hills, and right now, Deb Haaland is an Indigenous woman who's the Secretary of the Interior. And that is kind of mind-blowing to think that an Indigenous woman is leading a cabinet level position that was designed to absorb us and to erase us and to impose colonial law over and against federal Indians. Federal Indians are a real creation of the European imagination. So everybody who's tuned in, you kind of get to hear firsthand, very valuable insights in how Fool's Crow, who propagated or prophesied, said, if we are only to return land back in Indigenous hands, the world could begin to heal. And that's what I hear coming through everybody participating, even in the comment section. I'm reading everybody's comments in the comment section. And so we reclaimed a sacred site called Peshla. I should say my wife did. She just left me a little to-do list, left a honey-do list in the morning, and I got up and found out that one of our sacred sites was going up for sale. And in the little to-do list, she said, create a video and link a bank, create a Indiegogo, a crowdfunding site. And so this land back movement and action movement is part of prophecy. It's part of the redemptive journey of the human species. And for people asking how to get involved in it, I don't know. You're gonna have to talk to David and Michelle, but I'm all in. And Chairman Ted Hernandez, that's what his name was. I couldn't remember your last name, Chie Tahashi, but I saw him in the comment section. So good to, kind of be in your virtual country here. So thank you.
So I'm noticing the time, and I know that another session will start. So I'm going to invite Michelle and Chase to conclude with some just final thoughts, because I do want to honor the fact that we don't want to compete against any of the sessions, because as the organizers of this, one of the things that we said is we're not going to make people choose, do you come to the Indigenous-led Community Land Trust Or do you go listen to Rick Wolf of Democracy in Action talking about worker cooperatives? No. So we're doing these one by one by one by one, and there'll be a new Zoom link, but we are going to bring this one to a close. But the session is closing, but the work begins. So I'll invite Michelle and then Chase for any final thoughts.
Michelle, you got to go first.
I just want to say, thank you guys all for listening and just being part of this. I think that this times we live in is really scary and weird, and our kids are struggling with finding their way. And these stories give us hope. And I think that this work gives us, it gives us meaning. And I think that's what most of you are probably here for, is to do something different. And we can do it. And we can do it. I've seen it done in real life, and it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you for that. It's my honor and privilege to be here today. I want to thank, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, Yamo in the comment section for always just coming with the hardcore insight and comments there. Penniless Droz, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, mentioned the Indian Collective. There's the Indian Land Tenure Foundation, and there's probably a couple of others. There's a lot of great work that is happening in indigenous country, and we are in these positions to build these bridges, strengthen these bridges. And I said, what I said earlier about the English language software, because I think we're all able to relate to each other in the English speaking universe. And that is something that I was raised around a lot of Lakota speakers, but it wasn't my first language. And so I don't mean it to demean the English language. What I'm saying is that we are all in this together. We are all navigating and trying to find our way in how to walk in a righteous way and how to walk with strength, because all of our young people, all of our children, no matter if you're indigenous, not indigenous, whatever, they're all looking to us. And so whether we like it or not, they're seeing how we conduct ourselves and how we spend the time that we were gifted. And when we talk about a post-capitalism world, that is a world that is already a reality. It's already being imagined for us, because we know there's a reason why there's no Medicare for all. There's a reason why the ultra rich don't want to pay anybody a livable wage, because it's a type of forced dependency that is akin to the reservation system. Our word for reservation is okashke. It's a place of confinement. And so when you're born into working class subjugation, and you have to trade your labor, your time, your skills, your talents for another's currency, then we are together in this fight to deconstruct the financial extractive war machine. And we cannot do this without supporting each other and joining arms in arms and recognizing that we are in a struggle, and it's defining who we are, and our lives literally hang in the balance. So I just wanted to say that much. I left in the comment section because I don't want to entirely self-promote, but find me on Twitter at Chase Iron Eyes. I do a weekly webcast that is also a podcast called Cut to the Chase. That's why you see this wicked studio behind me. But thank you for inviting me, and thank you everyone who has stuck with this panel all the way to the bitter end and has commented. We do appreciate that.
Well, on that note, I will just say Chase, I will promote Chase Iron Eyes. I have had the privilege of meeting him through the Standing Rock struggle and then engaged with him multiple times, and I've never not been inspired, provoked, and challenged in the right way to do the right thing. So please join me, everyone, in thanking Chase Iron Eyes, Michelle Vassel, and I want to thank each and every one of you for being here. Thank you so much. Again, we can do it. We are the people we've been waiting on. Let's doing it together. Peace.
Oh.